My name is Bill Golis, and today I'll be covering Progress Database Management. There are several tools used to manage the databases within Progress and the app servers within Progress, OpenEdge. The primary is the service that needs to be running on Windows to support the Progress databases and app servers. It's called the admin service for OpenEdge, and this must be running in order to use OpenEdge and Progress databases. The Progress Explorer tool, or the PET, which is an interface designed to run in a 32-bit environment. This is the tried and true established management tool for OpenEdge Progress. It can be run in a 64-bit environment, but only with a registry fix or hack done to the machine that it runs on. Typically, the PET is run on a 32-bit admin machine if you're deploying this solution in a 64-bit environment where your database server is 64-bit. The other tool is the OpenEdge Explorer, which is a web browser version, if you will, of the PET. Runs in 32 and 64-bit environments naively. First, we're going to talk about the PET. It runs from the OpenEdge menu on the All Programs. OpenEdge must be installed on the machine that's used for the administration of the databases and app servers. Of course, if it's a 32-bit server that is running your application or your database, and you can run the PET right from the database server, and it's the easiest and most expeditious way to handle it. If it's a 64-bit environment for your database server, you're going to need to install the registry fix for OpenEdge if you want to use the PET on the server. Again, typically it should be run from a 32-bit workstation, which can be virtual or physical, but it must be on the same domain, and you have to have run from an account that has access, administrative access to the database server. The PET setup. If you're running from the database server, then the default on the PET will be a local host, and that will connect right to the database. The default instances that are created during the application setup for Epicor. And here we'll show you that. This is a version 9 install here that we're going to use for today's demonstration. And start All Programs, and under OpenEdge here we will see the Progress Explorer tool, the little yellow flower icon. We bring that up, expand the tree here on the left, and we'll see that localhost is the default that's already there. We need to connect now to the databases in the app servers. You can do that one of three ways. You can right click on localhost and choose connect. You can go to the icon here, or you can go to your action menu and pull down to connect. Once you choose connect, the localhost login window will come up. The password is by default blank, and the user will populate with the Windows user that's currently on the machine. So say OK. It will try to connect. If everything is as it should be, it will connect, and you will see the right pane of your window here populate with the items that you can manage. If you expand the tree on the left, you'll see those same items. Today we're primarily concerned with the databases and the app server. If I select the databases here, you'll see on the right the name of the existing databases being managed, their current status, and configuration. As we can see, the primary and the training database are both running, and if we select App Server, it will show us all the names of the app servers here. It will not display the status automatically until you pull the database, or the app server, by selecting it and right-clicking and choosing Status or Properties. The status, it will show you if it's active and such, and then it will display in here that the details have been fetched, but it will not show you per se that it's active in the window here. but it does show you right here. Now let's see if we need to add an additional Progress server if we are administering from a remote or a different machine than where the database is located, administration server, or if we want to administer an additional environment beyond what's on the local host. We can add additional instances by selecting the Progress Explorer and then add Progress Database. Here's the local host. If we choose Progress Explorer here and we go to Action and say Add Progress Server, up pops our server properties window, and we will enter the server, the additional server that we want to be able to administer here. The user needs to be an account that has access to that server, administrative access and privileges, and then the password for that user. You can also use an IP address as opposed to the server name. Let me select OK. Here is the server that we just selected to connect to. Now, if we actually connect to it, it should populate these items as well. Now we have both the local host and an additional server, both being managed by the same Progress Explorer tool. And both of these instances are 10.2a databases that have to match the PET. Okay, from the PET, the two primary items that we're concerned with today are the app server and the databases. If you select in the left tree the DBs or the app servers, you'll get a list of the active items of that instance on the right pane. And with the DBs, it will show you their status and configuration in real time. Whereas with the app servers, it will just show you what app servers are being managed by that particular PET. Here's the databases. It shows what's running, the config, and the name of the DB. If you go to the app servers, it shows all the app servers that are being managed by this Progress Explorer tool, but it won't show the status until you right-click and select status, and then you see it's active. It does indicate then in the status that it has been queried, but it does not show that it's active per se. Although it will show if they're stopped. Next up, from the PET, you can start or stop the databases from the action pull down, from the icons on the toolbar, or by right-clicking on the database. Typically, from within the PET, you always have about 3 options to do the same thing. You can right-click on the object and select the action. You can left click on the object and then select the action from either the pull down or from the tools menu. Beyond just starting and stopping, we can also see and manage other aspects of the databases. If we expand our databases tree here on the left and then expand the individual database out, you'll see that for each database, typically you're going to have a configurations level, then what your configuration is. Typically it'll be the default, and then if it's a standard install, you'll see a MFG sys group and an ODBC group. At the configuration level, if you right click and choose properties, that will allow you to manage the properties of a database, such as lock table entries, the size of your blocks, your buffer size, etc. This is beyond the scope of today's Lunch and Learn, but all that is controlled from within the PET here. If you do right-click on the database directly and choose Properties, this is where you would set your database to start automatically when the admin server comes up. Typically, you want to have this box checked and active for all of the environments that you want to run at all times. Typically live, of course, production, and training or a test environment. Having them all run, if you don't use all of them, you're going to have some resource drain that you can apply better towards the ones that are being utilized. So again, here is your checkbox to auto start and this also applies when the server reboots or when the admin service restarts, as it does when it reboots as well. Yeah, the additional information from within the PET. From within, say, your app servers, you can right click and choose properties, and it will show you the properties window, which allows you to change various things like your logging settings, advanced features here, which can be used for database tuning and setup. Again, these are beyond the scope of today's discussion. Onto the OpenEdge Explorer, which is the sister tool, if you will, of the PET. OpenEdge Explorer, as AppleCore says, as OpenEdge describes, provides functionality currently available in the PET, but within the OpenEdge Management Console running in a web browser. So it basically has virtually all of the functionality of the PET with a different front-end user interface, and it runs in a 64-bit environment. Like with the PET, the OpenEdge Explorer needs to have the OpenEdge Administration Service running before you can fire it up. To run the OpenEdge Explorer, it's at Start, Programs, OpenEdge Explorer, and then Management Console. When you first bring it up here, it will prompt for credentials. The defaults are admin for both username and password. And once you log in first time, it will require you to change at least the password at first login. It'll also bring up the box to select for the OpenEdge management to auto start when the admin server is started. This is a definite yes that you want to check if you're going to be utilizing the OpenEdge Explorer. If you do not check the auto start for OpenEdge management, you need to start the tool manually with a command prompt window every time that you restart the server or the admin service for OpenEdge. If your DBs are currently set up properly via the PET or the OE Explorer, and they're recognized by the admin service, OpenEdge Explorer will discover them, and this is what they call managed databases. If you have a DB that is not managed, meaning that you created it from scratch and it has not been set up to be managed, you'll need to use the database migration utility here within the web browser interface to set them up to be managed by the OpenEdge Explorer. And we'll show you that OpenEdge Explorer here shortly. All programs, OpenEdge Explorer. From within there, there's a config for your first running it, and then the management console. That is what the tool is called. Again, the default is admin, but it will force you to change that password right away. Select OK. Here's our web browser interface. Similar in look and feel to the PET. On your left pane, you can expand out the server, and then we see the different items, same as the PET had, only in a different order. If you bring up your app servers here, you can see that this actually does show which app servers are running and which are not. The green are running, the red are not. Once you select, say, your app servers, you need to select each individual one to bring up a window that will show its particular status. So it's a bit more clunky of an interface than the PET, where each time you want to do something, you have to select it and then the browser has to refresh. So for instance, now that I've selected a primary app server for this database, it shows that it is active and stateless, and that it is running here, so it's active. If you want to change it, you have to select a configuration, and from here is where you can do things like change it from auto start, view the port number and such, change the logging settings, etc. Safety with the database. If you select here, it shows you all of the databases being managed by this particular instance of the Open Edge Explorer tool, but you have to select each one to drill down. Here's our live database. It shows that it's running. If I want to configure it, I need to select the config here to get a separate window. Here's where you set the auto start, and you can even go in further into the configuration files by selecting edit. And then you change your file consideration and your location. Alright, as we just saw, you select your resources in the left pane of the window and view the results in the right generally. Once we're set up, we'll be able to see the real-time status of these resources by clicking on them in the tree. And to make changes, you have to navigate about the right panel typically, select things like edit and change, and you can freeform type in any of the open fields that are not grayed out. Some guidelines for starting and stopping the databases and the app servers. You'll need to do so when doing things like restoring databases, copying them, and backing them up, except if you're using the online versions of the commands. They're designed to be used while the database is running. Typically, you should always start your database, then start the associated app servers. And when shutting down, you must do the reverse. First, shut your app servers down, then shut down the database. Typically, it is wise to pause 10 or 20 seconds between stopping and restarting the database. And same with the app servers. Once you see your instance running and you've started and stopped them, you'll get a feel for how fast they start and stop. But you do want to be sure that the processes have completed before trying to execute the next one, or things can hang up and cause you problems. Typically, when it comes to app servers, you want to start them in the following order: the main, then your task agent, and then your process server, and shut down in the opposite order. The way that I remember that is when you're starting up, you want to go from the shortest to the longest description. So a main being only 4 letters, then task agent, and then process server. And when shutting down, you want to go in the opposite order. First your process server, then your task agent, and then your main. So we're going to give that a shot here and show you how that works. And we'll use the PET to do so. Going to connect to our local host. Once it displays our options here, we'll expand our tree. And let's shut down the live database. So first, the app servers. Always shut down app servers first, start up database first. And remember, it's always, if you're shutting down, it is the longest to the shortest of the titles. So we're just up there. Alright, to shut down the app servers here prior to the database, shutting down, you want to go process server, and then task, then a primary. So we're shut down here, we're going to choose our task next, and then we're going to choose our primary. Now, and once these all display a not running, then we can go and shut down our database for the live environment. Okay, now to start up our database, we're going to do the exact same thing in the opposite order. We're going to first start the database, and we've waited about 10 or 15 seconds to make sure it's down. And you can always right-click and check your status. It should show us not running on the default config. And now we're going to start it up. Right-click and select Start, or the icon here. And it comes right up. Very nice. Back to our app servers, and remember to reverse the order. Start your primary, then your task, and then your process. And then you want to wait until they're all up. It should indicate started. Please check, and you should check. Right click, select status. It should show it as active, which it does. Active. Alright, other things to do from within these tools, and the additional tool, which is the ProENV command line interface. Once you have stopped or learned what you need to do with your database, that's when you work from the ProENV tool to do things like copy or restore or to back up a database. The ProENV, like I said, is a command line tool, and it is on the OpenEdge menu, ProENV. Pro Restoration, a ProRest is the restore command. ProBKUP is the backup command. Using either of these commands, the database and the app servers must be shut down. First thing that you do when you get into your ProENV is you type prompt, the word prompt, and hit enter, and then you change the directory to your target folder, which, if you're doing a restore, it's where you want the restore to land. If you're doing a backup, it's where you're taking the backup from. And here is the syntax on this slide for doing a restoration to a database in the training folder. ProCopy is another command where you copy one database to another slot. Again, the database being copied and the target being overwritten must be shut down. You always need to reside in the database, the directory that you're going to copy the database from, and then you can identify the target database in your path. So if we're doing the training database that we're copying, we're going to be sitting in the DB / training folder, and the command is ProCopy mfgsys, and then the path to where you want it to copy, and then the name that you want it to copy to. The one command parameter within the ProENV environment here that's very important is the online command. Typically used on Pro backups, the online parameter allows you to back up the database while it is running and users are connected to it. And this can be done manually, or typically it's done from a scheduled script for your daily backups. But you want to be sitting in the database that you want to back up on that directory. For instance, if it was a live database, it would be at Program Files, Epicor Software, Epicor 905 DB. And the syntax is ProBKUP space online, then the database name that you're backing up, and then the name of the backup file, typically with a .1 or .bkup, and whatever arbitrary extension that you choose. This creates a backup of the database called, in this instance, backup1, in the same directory as the DB that is being backed up. You can also specify where to write the backup to outside of that directory by putting the path in the command. For instance, with a ProBK online, and then MFG-Sys is the database that you're backing up, and if you then specify where to back up to, for instance, X backups / backup one, and this would create a backup file of MFG-Sys called backup.1 on the X drive in the backup folder. Typically then, once the online backup file has been created, this file can be written or moved to where it will be backed up for a more permanent retention to a different disk or to the cloud or both. Generally, the online backup command will be used to create a batch file to run on schedule to automatically back up the database, and subsequently created files are then archived with a standard backup solution software like Carbonite to go up to the cloud, or Backup Exec to store to tape or USB disk or such. When backing up, always test your backup system when setting it up, and test it regularly to make sure you're capturing viable database backups before you have a need to restore those databases. Here at CodaBears, we recommend doing a disaster recovery drill at least yearly or more frequently to ensure that you have a proper backups and you have the ability to restore your live environment and with the procedure and files that you have in place and in a timely fashion. Remember, no one plans to fail. They just fail to plan, and always test to verify your backups. And these are the tools to do Progress Database Management. Thank you for your time.